But first, Trump in charge. That's the focus of tonight's angle. All right, he commanded the room for over an hour on complex matters of foreign and domestic policy, on trade, on regulatory matters. And he's already announcing huge new foreign investment in the United States. And that's going to create jobs and, of course, boost our GDP. But the media's take on Trump today was, well, more proof that they've learned nothing.
One of the biggest things that stood out to me from that press conference, from moments when Trump got out there before he even started taking questions, is the level of anger.
He's really agitated.
He had a long list of grievances. This should be someone who is upbeat and happy to come in, but he is still full of grievances.
Oh, that's what they took from today? That's it? These people are as clueless as they were when they thought that Taylor Swift and Good Vibes and $1 billion could drag Kamala across the finish line. If Trump was anything today, he was Trump. Confident, determined, candid, and yeah, unafraid to call it as he sees it. If you were looking for optimism, he offered plenty of that today, too.
We are at the beginning of a great, beautiful golden age of business. And I think we're also at a golden age of common sense. Great respect is being shown to our country again. And we have a great country, but we have to run it properly. It's going to be run properly.
And again, unlike Biden, unlike Harris, Trump took questions from reporters. He didn't hesitate to take questions. Most of the reporters, by the way, who never gave him a chance 4 years ago.
On the campaign trail, you vowed to bring down the prices at grocery stores very fast.
Yeah, we will do it fast.
But then you recently told Time Magazine that bringing down prices would be very hard. So what can the American people expect when you get into office?
It's always hard to bring down prices when somebody else has screwed something up like they did. But we'll bring them down. We'll get them down. Energy is going to bring down prices. I think you're going to see some pretty drastic price reductions.
So finally, we have a president who is focused on putting the American people first, not the global climate control freaks who've dominated us under Biden. But on every issue today, issue after issue, he was clear. Other countries aren't going to dictate our policies, and just because a policy has been in place for decades doesn't mean he won't be open to changing that policy, even when our allies are concerned. Because when Trump is president, no one, not even our friends, are going to take advantage of us.
We are not treated well, as you know, by Canada. Canada is subsidized to the tune of about $200 billion a year. They have a very small military. They rely on our military. It's all fine, but, you know, they got to pay for that. It's very unfair.
Yeah, well, it's refreshing. It's refreshing to hear a president standing up for America's interests again, taking a pragmatic approach to protecting the American economy. But again, of course, the backbenchers who literally missed Trump's rise in 2016 and then again in 2024, always underestimating him, could only resort to their old playbook.
That was a trailer. That was an hour-long trailer for the next 4 years, in that he tells a lot of lies.
And he tells a lot of lies. Now, this from a media that doggedly refused to report on what was obvious for 4 years. Speaking of lies, well, that, look, we all saw Biden was not in charge, all the big defenders of democracy. We didn't have a president for the last 4 years. And we certainly didn't have someone living at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue who was mentally fit for the job. So when they accuse Trump of lying, I say consider the source. The fact is, Trump was speaking inconvenient truths today. Truths about issues that the talking heads don't bother to even think about. As usual, he's 5 steps ahead of them.
The Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. China. And we gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China. And they've abused it. They've abused that gift. It should have never been made.
Well, Trump was, again, refreshingly un-Washington, when he didn't even shy away from the subject, despite Jimmy Carter's lying in state today. Remember, he was the president who presided over the handover.
I liked him as a man. I disagreed with his policy. So, hey, he thought giving away the Panama Canal was a good thing. I think it cost him the election. This was a question that was asked of me. I didn't bring it up. I didn't want to bring up the Panama Canal because of Jimmy Carter's death. But people don't bring it up.
Well, it wasn't about disrespecting Carter, and the press knew exactly what it was saying when it brought it up. It's about putting our security first. Now, remember Congressman Mike Gallagher? He was then chair of the Select Committee on the CCP. He laid it all out in stark terms, saying in 2023, a visitor to the Panama Canal might think they were in China. Ports at both ends of the canal are managed by companies from the People's Republic of China, while Huawei dominates the country's telecom system. Yeah, pretty important, don't you think? Since 2018, Panama has been a member of China's Belt and Road Initiative as well, and Xi's plan to dominate all global trade is part of this. So do we really want China dominating a canal that's central to our trade? If they take control of enough of Panama, could China ultimately use it as a station for its military? These are valid questions. But again, even raising this issue is somehow an affront to official Washington. How dare you stand up for the United States? You're threatening the global order, Donald Trump. And if Trump can make a deal for strategically important Greenland, why wouldn't that be a good thing?
We need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time. I'm talking about protecting the free world. You look at, you don't even need binoculars. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. You have Russian ships all over the place. We're not letting that happen.
Again, this is something that set the media's hair on fire, but Trump's right. Back in August, a piece in the Harvard International Review explained how China has tried to take hold of Greenland's iron and uranium mining industries, and even has Russia involved in the project to establish what they're calling a polar Silk Road. That would create Arctic dominance. So why is this never mentioned in the media's coverage of Greenland and Trump's desire to perhaps make a deal for it? Well, I'll say it's for the same reason they never addressed the fact that NATO is still taking advantage of U.S. taxpayers.
NATO's taking advantage of us. And one of the problems that I have, and I've said it openly, I said it to President Zelensky, Europe is in for a tiny fraction of the money that we're in. Why are we in for billions and billions of dollars more money than Europe?
Excellent question. Why? And it's a question that makes all the right people uncomfortable, as does Trump's approach to dealing with Russia and his desire to end this horrible war that Biden's incompetence set the stage for.
Somewhere along the line, Biden said, no, they should be able to join NATO. Well, then Russia has somebody right on their doorstep, and I could understand their feeling about that. But there were a lot of mistakes made in that negotiation. And when I heard the way that Biden was negotiating, I said, you're going to end up in a war. And it turned out to be a very bad war. And it could escalate.
Trump, the peacemaker, wants it to end. And of course, he's spot on. And in response, the press tiptoed toward Russia collusion again.
He took Vladimir Putin's side about Ukraine and NATO, saying, I understand why Russia would be mad that some country on its doorstep would join NATO.
Let me just stop right there, John.
Yeah.
Just that quote alone.
No. Russia's mad, and I understand that.
That Russia invaded a
democratic nation within Europe.
And he understands why.
Imagine that. A leader who actually tries to convey an understanding of both sides to reach a peace deal. It's called negotiation. It's called laying the groundwork for a deal. Has Biden tried this? Of course not. He's not capable of it. Biden hasn't even been able to negotiate the release of hostages from the Hamas terrorists. He's never scared Hamas. They're not worried about Biden. But about Trump? Oh, yeah, they are.
When you say all hell will
Before
be
I
paid,
take office.
all hell must be paid if they don't release the hostages.
If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East.
Can you elaborate?
And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out. I don't have to say anymore, but that's what it is.
Yeah, he's not going to give you battle plans, but he's conveying his point. And I bet Hamas gets it. Now, Trump displayed this kind of strength, some would call it bravado, but I think it's pragmatic, throughout the entire press conference, just as he has during his entire life. It's why he won the election. It's why the media hates him. So let's be clear what's really going on here. They're the one, they accuse him of being angry. They're livid that he's going to be back in office. They can't they can't get past themselves in their own anger. And apparently the press and some Democrats, most Democrats, expect our leaders to just roll over and to submit to the demands of the elites. And any resistance is just met with lies and smears.
It's dangerously similar to the kind of leadership that we see in places like Russia or Hungary or other places where we have strongmen and oligarchs making decisions as opposed to the American people. And that's often accompanied by not just corruption, but also oppression of people.
They're back to the same thing. He's a dictator. He just won the election. And the Boston Globe columnist, oh no, he's just an autocrat. It's not going to work anymore. They've learned nothing. The American people saw through this. That's why Trump's going to be back in office in just a week or so.